Professor Galtung, I wonder if you could give us an overview of some of the books that you have published in recent months.
Kimberly, a few things I would more like to do. I'm delighted. So you have 3 here. These are my babies. And they've come 1 per month. And don't think that I write a book in 1 month. It's about 8 to 10 years work behind every single one of them. But imagine a kind of long assembly line where the books go through, my standard is 6 revisions. And the last point is the final touch. And the final touch may take a week, 2 weeks, something like that. So why did we start TRANSCEND University Press? You will notice this little logo here. It's because the old system doesn't work. And if I should describe the old system, it's a publishing house, bookstores. Now, the publishing house may be excellent and may be inspiring, may have a very good editor. God bless them, but it takes an enormous amount of time. It takes so much time, in fact, that you can almost count on something between 1 and 2 years between handing in a ready manuscript and seeing the book in your hand. In our case, it takes between 1 month and 2 weeks, because we have a special arrangement. Now, the condition, of course, is a camera-ready manuscript, which means it has been through the peer review process, critical reading by colleagues in the field before you hand it in. And a couple of other things I shall come to. The second point is that the bookstores don't work. There's no bookstore in the world that would display this. Peace is not a very appealing subject. Oxford University Press makes much of its money on gardening and what we call coffee table books. In other words, many of these publishing houses are not serious. Whereas our goal is, modestly put, to become the world's leading publishing house in serious academic peace literature. And these are the 3 books, and I would like to say a couple of words about them. The first 3 books, but I cannot quite disregard the economic aspect. So if you do it the ordinary, regular way, and I just quote figures from typical publication in Norway, you buy a book in the bookstore. Of that amount, 40% goes to the bookstore, 13% goes to the author, we are now up to 53, 47% to the publishing house. Now, the 13% to the author, one can then say whether it's little or much, but the system we have is a system where we pay the printing expenses and some transportation expenses. And that would amount to something like 10 to 15% of a low sales price. We sell it over our net shop, which would be www.transcend.org/TUP for TRANSCEND University Press. And you will understand what I'm aiming at. Since this is a non-profit organization, the authors don't take out royalties. There is no shop, since we are our own shop. There's no publishing house, since we are our own publishing house. But there's one thing we cannot do. We cannot do the printing. So the printing is expertly done by a very, very professional printing house, by a publishing house we cooperate with in Oslo, Norway, called Colophon. You can then calculate yourself, more or less, what we retain, which may be actually close to, let us say, 85%. From that we are financing TRANSCEND. And that means a lot of things. For instance, mediation, TRANSCEND media service, workshops, and so on. I'm not going to go into that. But because we want, in a sense, a system which is based on decent money, where there's no type of bribery, no hidden forces. The force behind us is ourselves, and we want to stick to that. Now, enough of that, to the books. There are 3 books, and in a certain sense I would like to start with these 2. It's called 50 Years, 100 Peace and Conflict Perspectives, 50 Years, 25 Intellectual Landscapes Explored. TRANSCEND University Press #1, we got the idea of numbering a little bit late. So there's no 1, but here's the 3. And why the 50 years? Well, this is the anniversary for me, and an important one. 50 years ago, I sort of started as peace researcher and peace worker. This book #1 is about peace work. Fall 1958. It was not planned that way, but suddenly found myself mediated in a conflict between blacks, white integrationists and white segregationists in Thomas Jefferson's town in Charlottesville, Virginia. And for the first and last time I ended on the first page of Washington Post in a kind of flattering way. And when the thing came off non-violently, some of that was attributed to me. Well, that is conflict #11 in this book. There are 100 of them. And if I should try to put a number of it, I would say that of those 100, where I have been having dialogues from the top level to the bottom level, sideward, upward, downward, forward, backward, and come up with some kind of proposal, I would say 12 of them were not unsuccessful. But be careful now. When I say successful, I know fairly well that success may hide a failure in the future. And when I have a feeling that it was not very successful, suddenly that failure may hide a success. The world is dialectic. The world is not made forever. The world is dynamic. The solution orientation is the basic point about this book. So you have 100 conflict situations with a solution lined up. The second book is me as an intellectual. And it is actually philosophy of science. When it says landscapes explored, of course some of those landscapes had to do with how do I conceive of peace. And the first of the 25 is the efforts I went through to liberate the concept of peace from the state system. So we have one state or one alliance in a deadly battle, 40 million killed, one alliance beats the other. Out of that comes something called a peace treaty, after 40 million people have been killed, and 10 times that have been bereaved for 100 million. If you calculate 10 left behind for each one killed. Now, to call that peace sounds to me blasphemic. So there's another peace concept here. And how I then have tried to anchor that peace concept is the topic of the book. So there are 25 such stories. And it's been my life intellectually. And the second half of the book, let us say the 12 or 11 last stories, is what this might mean for other social sciences. Then there's a third book, which is #2, and that is jointly co-authored with my friend, an American professor of history who is teaching in Osaka, Paul Scott, and it is about democracy, peace, development. It has a theoretical part more written by me and a practical part of case studies written by Paul, who has played a very important role in stimulating, supervising, researching transitions to democracy in Asia. The final country is actually US with its transition to non-democracy, partly to liberate the reader from the idea that the transition process is always a problem of developing countries, and partly to say, you think you have democracy, fine, watch it. Don't let it slip out of your hands. So these are 3 books, and as I mentioned, available at our net shop, and you can pay with your credit card. There is a PayPal thing about it. And the standard price we have for the book is €20. And we don't pay that much attention to the number of pages, since I can tell you the price of printing that we pay is not that sensitive to it. It's sensitive to the number of copies we ordered, but not that sensitive to the number of pages. There will be a €5, if you will, postage. And I repeat, as the final part of this message, www.transcend.org/TUP for TRANSCEND University Press.